Welcome back to Inbox Talk. We're your hosts, Liz.
And I'm Evan.
And today we're going to be talking about spam traps. Like a lot of deliverability things, they sound a little scary.
Yeah, the naming conventions in deliverability are a little high pressure.
That's okay. We're going to make them a lot easier and less scary.
Yeah.
I wish I had a better word for that. But all right, let's just dive right in. So off the bat, there's 3 different types that we want to talk about. Just talking through each of them. Some are less scary than others, I guess.
Yeah.
But let's just run through them. So we've got pristine, recycled, and typo.
Yeah, so let's start with typo addresses. These ones, they're email addresses that are made to almost be someone else's email address. So gmail.com is a common one, or Susan as opposed to Susan. They'll do that on purpose just to kind of make them look like legitimate emails. But much like any of the other spam traps, they're going to go through a lot of the same behaviors where they may get signed up to your list either through a bot or they're embedded in a purchased list or a convention list, just to make sure that people who are getting those sort of not necessarily direct opt-in lists, we can monitor how much email, how much activity, or how long they're going to email someone on that list. So these are the least bad of the ones out there, but they
still not great, but the least bad.
Yeah,
I like how you put that.
Yeah. So the next one is recycled.
So I always love to throw up my email address that I had when I was 13. My swim and lizard email was probably at some point turned into a recycled spam trap.
Yep.
I stopped using it, I don't know, a while ago, I guess. But whatever I was signed up for at the time, or the different places that it's kind of made it out to, if they still continue to send to that email, even though it's not owned by me, my old provider has taken it over and potentially turned it into a spam trap.
Yeah.
It's a way to make sure that you're continually cleaning your list, making sure that you're only sending to those engaged folks. I'm not actually managing it. There's no person behind it anymore. So they want to make sure that it's being removed and that people are using those healthy sending habits.
Yeah, and for recycled ones, they tend to get worse the longer that you email them. So a lot of the agencies that report on this sort of stuff, there's like a 6-month check mark and then a 12-month check mark. And so the first few months that you have one of those on your list, when you're emailing them, they may not even report it as a spam trap address right away. Okay. But again, because they're not interacting with emails, the expectation is that by 6 months in with 0 activity, that you're going to get rid of them.
So my one from when I was 13 is just the worst at this point.
Right.
Okay.
But if I started emailing them 2 months ago, I wouldn't necessarily be getting dinged yet.
Got it.
But 4 months from now, if I was still emailing it, that's when it starts to be bad.
Haven't engaged. You just need to cut ties with that person.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if it's 2020, then they're like, hey.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. And then the last one is pristine.
Yeah, these are the scary ones. Pristine emails, they're specifically created to be spam traps. So they
were never real.
Yeah.
They've never actually been in existence at all. They aren't just a Gmail or anything.
Yep.
They're bad ones.
And primarily they are added into lists that are meant to be purchased. So it's one of the ways that these spam monitoring companies really try and find who's bad actors. There are a couple other ways that they can get on your list. Once someone purchases a list, they do a bunch of cold emailing, and then those emails are out in the world. Those can get picked up by other places and then submitted to your site via bots, which is more often than not how we actually end up seeing them. Okay. Not a lot of people buy lists anymore, which is good. But if you're starting to see an increase in pristine traps, that probably means that there's something else going wrong with how you're collecting your leads.
So those are definitely the most detrimental to your list health and anything deliverability related, but there's ways to remedy it.
Yeah.
And I think the important thing when we're talking about spam traps to keep in mind is that they're out there for good reason.
Yeah.
It's put out there with the intent of ensuring that you are keeping your list clean and that you're having healthy practices and that, other people, you're not buying lists and you're not just blasting out to all these people that don't want to hear from you and they're marking it a spam or doing anything like that. So they are put out there with really good intentions.
Yeah. They're kind of like secret shoppers if you've ever worked in retail.
Who hasn't?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the amount of spam traps that you can hit, it doesn't really vary based on your list size. So if you have 1 million people on your list, but you're hitting 200 pristine spam traps, something is gonna start going wrong. Again, different email inbox providers view that better or worse. And on top of that, not every email provider goes off the same spam trap list.
Okay.
So if we see that you're hitting, again, 200 pristine traps, you may actually be hitting more of them, but not all of them are getting reported. So it's an indicator that something is going wrong, and generally that the actions are the same regardless.
I think that's an important way to say that is that it's an indicator.
Yeah.
So it's never something that you can Google, what are all the spam traps in the world? I think that's the biggest question that I get is well, can't we just give me the list and I'll get them off my list? It's purposely set up that way so that it can't be done just to avoid those specific folks.
Yeah.
It's set up it's like the Google algorithm. It's no one's ever gonna give you all the answers, but you know what you can do to impact it to improve where you're showing on the list, right?
Yep.
So from a spam trap perspective, if it's already an issue, we obviously need to address it, but how can you even avoid that from happening? So what do we even do to make sure that that doesn't become a problem from the list growth and list acquisition perspective?
Yeah.
There's still a lot that you can do on the front end there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know things that we talk about a lot with customers are adding in double opt-in, using reCAPTCHA, kind of those keywords I think get thrown around a lot.
Yeah, you can also do, there's some email verifying integrations that you can plug into your forms.
Oh, okay.
A lot of those will try and check to just make sure that the email is valid when it gets submitted. I haven't found a ton that are super proactive on spam traps. Again, the point being that you don't know which email is a spam trap.
Yep.
It's just an overall total number of hits. So those won't normally get a ton of spam traps out of the way. Double opt-in is the biggest one. reCAPTCHA really helps with bot submissions, but theoretically, someone could take a spam trap address and go and submit it to your website and actually fill out the reCAPTCHA.
Okay.
It's not likely, but it could happen.
But in theory, it can happen.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about reCAPTCHA, double opt-in, all these different things, I'm sitting here as a marketer and thinking, why do we want to slow people down from getting on our list? What can we do to help fix that? Or is that something that I even want to implement because of that?
Yeah, double opt-in has always been one that's very much kind of your mileage may vary. Some people really like it. I know some places legally require it, and so they kind of take that choice off your hands.
Yep.
But it's always going to be a toss-up between whether you are wanting to have more people on your list versus wanting to have very engaged people on your list. It's the landscape is tending to shift towards the more engagement side of things. But again, we have very good examples of people who don't use double opt-in, and those people who, maybe they don't engage for 2 months and then they buy something. That's hard to account for. Unfortunately, there isn't one right answer. It's always going to be something if you have security concerns, you're going to probably err on the side of security.
Yep.
And double opt-in, mechanically, it works very well in terms of the spam trap side of things. Someone or a bot, let's say, fills out an email, they get a confirmation email, they're never going to click it. And so they never make it onto your list.
And the way I see a lot of our customers using it is that those are I don't want to say a last resort, but if they're not a requirement and you're not to that point yet that you are going to slow down your, top of funnel, it can be something that you put in because you are really being aggressive and trying to overcome an issue that you've seen or something like that. We do have some other customers that do use it. I think the way that I think about it is just them really respecting the people that are coming onto their list and wanting to make sure hey, we want to send you messages when you want to receive them. Out of a courtesy almost.
Yeah.
They like to show the double opt-in as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's customers of all sizes and all different varieties, e-commerce, non-e-commerce, whatever it might look like, that some do use it, some don't use it. There's all different reasons why maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't.
Yeah.
And again, that's something that our team can help suss out if it's something that you're interested in doing or pursuing. If we were to ever see that it is an issue, that's when we're going to be more aggressive with it though.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay. So as far as, if we get to the point where we're noticing hey, Evan, you have 400 spam traps on your list. Ooh. Let's get this resolved. What would be the recommendation or what would be the first action that you would take in a situation like that?
Yeah, I mean, going and looking at the total number of inactive people that you have on your list is going to be a good indicator of kind of where things stand. We may not necessarily want to prune those people or remove them from your list right away. But even going and looking at, let's say, 90 days without opening an email, if that's more than 25% of your list, then that's generally going to be something that we're going to have to sort of try and figure out a solution for. Again, every business varies quite a bit, but if you're if you're seeing that number of people that are inactive, it more than likely means that you haven't cleaned out your list in a while. And that's where those spam traps tend to live.
Yep. I know from our team's perspective, and what support talks about a lot is really getting like that evergreen re-engagement and understanding the list health just as it continues to evolve over time. Instead of it being every 7 years you start to look at it,
Right.
when it's like, hey, we should have done this a while ago. Getting that going right away, so you can set up the different criteria to be whatever you think is a good thing for you. You said like 90 days is usually a good benchmark of places to start.
Yeah.
If you've been emailing them, maybe it's 5 times in 90 days, maybe it's you once a day for 90 days, depending on what your business is and if that makes sense. And they're not opening any of those, that's a good starting point.
Yeah.
We don't want to just say like definitively everyone should prune from their list if they haven't opened an email in 90 days. We want to empower you guys to, choose that segment, choose the criteria. If they have made a purchase but they haven't opened an email, they're still an engaged person. And we don't want to just assume that they're all a spam trap out there or something.
Yeah.
So layering those different filters on, I think, is definitely helpful. But if we can get that evergreen going where we feel comfortable about what that criteria is, actions that they're doing that are positive, so making a purchase or engaging in some other way, whatever that means for your business.
Yeah.
Those are things that we'd want to take out of consideration, and we're not just going to eliminate all those as potential spam bots, I guess, from the list.
Yeah, and we've seen people who do like live event sort of businesses, and they, they'll have people who've attended 3 of their events in the past 90 days, but never opened an email. And it's like, well, they may still be wanting to get those, but they're clearly a real person. So, just kind of that's where spending that time to work through with either us or the SM team is going to be pretty important to make sure that you don't, remove people that don't need to be gone. Because the last thing we want to do is like remove good leads.
And slow down business by any means.
Yeah.
So, I think we'll have definitely resources available between online, our support team, our success management team, coupled with the deliverability team, that should give you guys confidence in what you can set up. You can always talk to us one-to-one if needed to on, what does this look like for my business? What's like a general thought? So we can always discuss that again a little bit further too.
Yeah.
Anything else from a spam trap perspective?
No, I think that's it.
I think hopefully it's a little less scary now and you feel empowered to take action and get those off your list. Reach out to us if you do have any questions. We can't wait to talk to you next time.